Hey guys, welcome back to another unboxing and review video. So today we have the G.I. Joe Retaliation Conrad Duke Hauser. So for those of you that know about this figure, this was referred to as the Ultimate Duke in the Wave 3.5. These figures came out in late 2013, had a very limited run, very poor distribution, and then they kind of just disappeared. So if you followed my channel, obviously I collect a lot of the Call of Duty themed building sets, but what got me into Call of Duty Mega Constructs in the first place was G.I. Joe. My first collection of anything has always been G.I. Joe, so these figures have always meant a lot to me, and so I thought it was kind of due for a unboxing and review of this specific figure. So let's take a look at the packaging first. Back in 2013, they went away from their traditional vintage style packaging to a G.I. Joe Retaliation line packaging. I don't like it. I know a lot of other collectors didn't like it either. It looks very just poor. It's poor and it doesn't look good. So I'm not a fan of the packaging by any means. On the right side, we see some of their figures in Wave 3.5. I have most of those as well. And then with that being said, what was really neat about this figure was that Duke at the time had a very limited role, or Channing Tatum, who played Duke, had a very limited role in the G.I. Joe Retaliation movie. By now, unfortunately, if you haven't seen it, you're going to get spoilers. Duke dies within the first 20 minutes of the movie. The movie kind of takes a different turn with a few of their G.I. Joe characters. And so Duke, who played a very prominent role in the original one, does not play any role in the second one. So what was nice about this is that the Ultimate Duke version, this is how he's decked out in that first mission right before he ends up dying while they're storming a Cobra facility. Now, with all of the 3.5 figures, or the Ultimate figures, they came with a ridiculous amount of accessories. So as you see, everything in front of you came with this figure. And this was initially packaged, originally for, I think it was like $12.99 is what I picked this figure up for. So we got a drone, we got a alternative mask if you didn't want to have Duke. So, I mean, you could also have just a bunch of these. You could army build these suckers and then have a bunch of generic Joes. And then we also have one of the Crash style helmets that was, very popular with this Retaliation line. They don't look great on the figures. I've never had my Joes display with these because they just look awkward. It's almost like having the short bus for your character. So not great. In addition to that, we have a ton of weapons. So we have a carbine, pistol, sniper combination of some sort. We have a bullpup design assault rifle with a grenade launcher. We get a 416, which is very nice as well. All of these weapons are in gunmetal gray. We get an AK-47, which is a pretty hard weapon to get in the Joe line. This is a nice inclusion. Would have been nice to get this in like a dual paint application. We get a G36, a tactical pump shotgun with what appears to be an EOTech on it. Obviously the optics on this guy don't work, but very nice inclusion. An automatic shotgun of some sort. I think this is, I have no idea. It's not the AA-12. I don't know what this is based off of. A rocket launcher. No Duke would be complete without a rocket launcher, in my opinion. So very nice on that. And then we get a knife. Now, surprisingly enough, these are not all the accessories that came with the figure. Duke himself is carrying one of the weapons, which is a very customized M4 assault rifle with a really nice red dot. We've got a suppressor grenade launcher on there. Looking very tactical, very cool. In addition, he's got a pistol in his right holster, and then he's got another knife in the back of his vest. So before getting into articulation, let's just take a look at overall just the paint sculpting, the figure himself, and the the tacked vest. So again, Channing Tatum didn't play a very big role in this character or in the movie, but they did a very good job capturing his likeness for this figure. It's not great, but you can definitely see the character there, right? I mean, it's not perfect like with any Joe figure, but it does look very good. Moving on to the rest of the sculpt for the figure, he comes in a very nice like that kind of desert battle tan schematic. It doesn't appear to be any type of actual camo. It looks like it's just a very like a coyote brown or a tan fatigue color for the entire uniform. On the tactical vest, we're getting a little bit of digital printing for armor is what it looks like, but that is not throughout the entire uniform. On both the left and right side of the shoulders, very similar to the Army ACU or the Army Combat Uniform, where we have the Velcro and the pouch, like, or the patches, where we can see like right here the IR or the infrared American flag represented on the actual area where a unit patch would go. So this is not where the American flag would go. It would always go in the top portion of the upper flap. The bottom portion of the flap is always meant for the unit patch or the unit insignia. And just a little bit of a history lesson for those of you that don't know, because I was in the military and I did deploy to Iraq. On the left shoulder is where you have your current unit patch, and then on your right you have, if you're deployed with that unit, you would have you have to be there you have to be there for an entire 30 days before you're allowed to slap that pouch on. But then you'd put your unit pouch over here. The right side represents your deployment pouch and whatnot, and then you have obviously the IR flag up top. So very cool inclusion. I would have liked to see a little more attention to detail for that, but overall not terrible, not bad. The tactical vest on Duke looks really good. So this was, this is kind of common with some of the other Ultimate figures. Mouse, we had Flint display with this as well. And then we had, I think there were two other figures that had this. I know Roadblock didn't have this style of tactical vest, but overall it looks very movie accurate. It looks really nice. I'm a big fan of it. And then moving on to the pants, very standard, typical G.I. Joe pants. Nothing to write home about. So let's get into articulation. What really kind of ruined this figure for a lot of people was the articulation cuts for him. So similar to all other G.I. Joes, he's on a ball joint head. I'm not going to go into that. Where I'm going to go into it is the issues for this figure. So like every other G.I. Joe figure, he's got ball joint arms, hinge elbows that swivel. He's got the swivel and hinge wrists on both sides. He does have the Abercrunch in swivel. He's got ball joint hips, double jointed legs, and then also the ankle pivots and hinges. Now, where this issue kind of really got bad with these figures were the tactical vests and the articulation. And so as you can see, you cannot bring his arms past almost like a 45-degree angle in because of the hindrance of this tactical vest. And this is on both sides, unfortunately. So there's been a lot of customizers. What they'll do is they've ended up removing portions of the tactical vest to be able to get a better, articulation cut, to be able to use Duke's articulation, so you can actually have him in a two-handed shooting pose. But as of right now, with how the figure is right out of box, you cannot get this figure into a two-handed shooting pose, which is a disappointment. I mean, that's, when you have something this tactical with all the tactical accessories, and then he can't even hold the weapon, that's pretty terrible. So that was definitely the big downfall for this figure, and where a lot of people were not very interested with wanting to army build this or collect this because of these issues with this vest. It is a pretty easy fix from what I've seen, but again, we're taking away from the deco. What people have had to do is they end up cutting around that pectoralis armor portion pretty deep, and then they have the articulation, but then again, having just the display of him out like this, it does look weird. So there hasn't been a perfect fix, obviously, for the figure, which is a bit of a disappointment. This would have been nice for Hasbro to have caught before actually releasing the figure. But again, this was kind of the end of G.I. Joe at the point where these figures were coming out. This was one of the last waves that G.I. Joe had before Hasbro just kind of axed the line, so they weren't really too focused on quality control issues at that point. Overall, as a figure, this is a phenomenal figure. I'm a huge G.I. Joe collector, so when looking at having this part of my collection, this was obviously one of the things that I wanted. I collected most of the Retaliation Ultimate figures because what was neat about it, they were the likeness of the character from the movie, but they also, you know, they were in better costumes or better, you know, fatigues, more accurate to the movie as opposed to the initial releases of the figures. In comparison to some of their Joe lines, I'm not like a huge you know, movie Joe line collector like Rise of Cobra, you know, Retaliation. You know, I started with Joe's from the cartoon as a kid, and you know that progressed into obviously getting to see the movies, yes, and the comic books. But my versions of the Joes are obviously from that TV show. So most of my collection does, you know, end up in the realm of the 25th anniversary, and like Pursuit of Cobra is my favorite line out of the entire series. So, you know, the figure here, it's nice to have because it's a nice representation of Duke from the movie, but this isn't like a must-have for me. If the figure, especially now, what gets difficult is we're coming into the realm of the new Snake Eyes movie coming out for, I think in about a year and a half is when that's going to come out. So Hasbro's already announced they are going to revamp the G.I. Joe toy line, at least for the Snake Eyes movie. So we are going to get G.I. Joes within, I'd say, about the next 2 years. I have no idea what that's going to do for quality control. What I can tell you is the Joes that are already out there in the market currently that, you know, have been discontinued, those prices I would likely guess are going to rise. G.I. Joes, and within the last 2 or 3 years since that TV show on Netflix came out, The Toys That Made Us, prices have been outrageous. So it's been hard to be a G.I. Joe collector. You know, fortunately for me, you know, I've been collecting throughout the years, so I've had all these figures for quite some time. But it is hard. It's always hard to open up now a G.I. Joe, even though I purchased this for $12.99, knowing that the value of this is over $50. So it's always that kind of give or take with, you know, whether you take it out of the package, whether you leave it in the package. But I like to collect my figures out of the package. I like to be able to display them. So this was one of the ones that I definitely had to take out of the package. I think he looks great. The paint deco, the sculpting on this guy looks phenomenal. There is that small disappointment of articulation between the ball joints and these shoulders and, you know, the upper arms, but that can be fixed. So it really kind of depends on what you want out of this figure. If you're looking for a very movie accurate Duke, this would be the one that you want to get. It comes with a ton of accessories that you can, you know, arm up your other Joes. So in that sense, it's always nice to be able to have these additional accessories. You know, I really appreciate the additional head sculpt right here because it allows you to be able to get multiples of these and to have, you know, some generic Joes out there on the battlefield. So very cool, very happy with this figure. It's a disappointment that G.I. Joe and with Hasbro canceling the line, that these figures have just become so hard to collect. I know there's a lot of people wanting to get into G.I. Joes, wanting to start collecting those, and they're just so expensive, which kind of, you know, keeps people shying away from them. So hopefully with this new movie, the new Snake Eyes movie needs to be successful. It needs to be good. It needs to revamp the toy line, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more figures out there in the market that are not an arm and a leg to collect. With that being said, guys, I don't have a whole lot else to say about the video or the figure. I think he's a great figure. If you guys can find this, you know, at a hobby store or a, you know, kind of a third-hand toy store for cheap, if you can get this under $30, I would definitely recommend picking it up. There's a lot of really cool aspects of the figure. However, I wouldn't pay a whole lot more than that given the articulation issues. If this figure was perfect, you know, if there were no articulation issues, if everything worked out perfect, like two-handed firearm poses, I'd spend a lot more money for it as well too, but that's not the case. So with that being said, guys, if you like the video, please leave a like, please leave a comment if you have the figure. If you've made the correction, if you fixed the tack vest, let me know how you did that. You know, I'll probably try to shave off as little as possible, try not to take away from the actual tactical vest, but I'd always be curious to see what you've done to make your fixes to make this figure work. With that being said, guys, I'll catch you next time. Bye.